"Jacob, what should we do now?" asked Ruby to her husband. "Ruby, I'm sorry, but I honestly don't know. It's been a hard day at work today. I'm going to get some air," said her husband, and left the house, closing the door carefully behind himself. Ruby saw him off with a look of despair and sank tiredly into an armchair. Before, Jacob would never have gone for a walk without her, and now it had become the norm. The woman understood that it was hard for him, but it wasn't any easier for her either. They had been together for 10 years, and the absence of children had become a real problem for their family. Ruby and Jacob met after university. A bright romance immediately arose between them, and in 6 months the young people got married. Jacob was just starting out as a doctor, and Ruby worked in the marketing department of a large construction company. At first they were planning to take care of their careers, get back on their feet, arrange their lives, so Ruby's sudden pregnancy was an unfortunate surprise for both newlyweds. After long and painful discussions, they decided together that it was too early for them to have children yet. 7 years passed. Jacob successfully worked as a vascular surgeon in a private clinic, and Ruby was preparing to open her own company for interior decoration. The couple had already bought an apartment, nice cars, saved up enough money for a comfortable life, and were ready to have a baby. But Ruby still could not get pregnant. The couple went to the doctor, and after all sorts of tests, he issued a verdict. "Ruby, unfortunately, with the overall positive results, you have very little chance of getting pregnant and carrying a baby." "But how could it be? Why? I'm young and healthy," almost cried out the woman. "You see, pregnancy terminations do not always go without a trace. At first it seems that there are no consequences, but then—" The doctor explained something else in medical terms for a long time, but the meaning was clear. Jacob and Ruby left the doctor's office silently, and for a while they tried not to touch the subject at all. A year later, Ruby could not stand it and offered to take the child from the orphanage. Jacob thought about it for a long time, prepared himself mentally, and finally told his wife that he agreed. They began to look at photos of babies for adoption, but at one moment Ruby, bursting into tears, admitted that she could not accept another person's child as her own. From then on, Ruby almost stopped smiling at all. She didn't talk much, and she constantly moped around, coaxing Jacob to leave her. "Why do you need a wife like me? You'll find someone who'll give you your baby." "Ruby, come on. It was our decision together, and we have to be responsible together too. And let's close this subject once and for all." But Ruby could not calm down and continued to torment herself and her husband daily. The husband's nerves were at their limit. Realizing that it would only get worse, he more and more often thought about leaving her, but not totally, of course, but to shake Ruby up and bring her to her senses. Jacob understood that without shaking her up, it would go on. He wandered down the street and tried to find an answer to the question whether he loved Ruby and wanted to continue living with her. Yes, he loved her very much, but he did not want to live in such hopeless darkness. It was a dilemma. Finally, confused in his thoughts, he decided to get a coffee. Jacob went into the mall, where there was a nice cafe on the second floor, and then he heard someone calling him. He turned around in surprise and saw Amanda hurrying toward him. She was a nurse who had recently taken a job at the clinic. "Oh, Amanda, what a meeting! So unfamiliar to see you not in your white uniform." "Me too, Jacob. There's a nice cafe here. What about having a cup of coffee together?" said the young woman, and smiled enchantingly. Amanda had given him unmistakable signs of attention before, and now she looked at him in such a way that Jacob suddenly thought that a little distraction from his problems would be good for him now, and so he agreed. They had only taken a few steps when someone nearby shouted, "Help! A woman felt bad!" Jacob slowed down, trying to see what had happened and figure out if his help was needed, but Amanda persisted in pulling him toward the stairs. "Come on, they'll manage without us," said Amanda grudgingly. "How can you say that? You're a medical specialist," exclaimed Jacob indignantly. "Exactly, and I'm supposed to cure people, not the homeless. It's a street fortune teller. She's always wandering around here," snorted the woman. Jacob did not listen to her and hurried to the place where a crowd had already begun to gather around the woman. Amanda stomped her foot in annoyance and followed him. At the clinic, everyone was well aware of Jacob's family problems, and she secretly hoped that soon he would be free and she would be able to get such a cool boyfriend. Jacob sat down near an elderly woman who looked about 80 years old, and the thought flashed through his mind that indeed, more than once, he had seen her offering fortune-telling or asking for money here. But that did not change anything for Jacob, for she was a human like all the others. After examining the woman, he immediately realized that she had choked on something, began to gasp for breath, and therefore lost consciousness. He asked Amanda to help him, but she even moved backward. Then a young boy and a man immediately came up to Jacob and helped him carry her up. From the corner of his eye, he noticed how squeamish Amanda looked as he held the elderly woman against him and tried with jerks to push the foreign object out of the hapless woman's windpipe. Finally, a whole nut came out of the old woman's mouth, and she wheezed. Jacob supported and comforted her. "It's okay. All the bad stuff is over. Just sit still and breathe. I know it hurts, but literally a minute and everything will be fine," said the man, stroking the fortune teller on the back, while he himself was thinking with disgust about how someone like Amanda came to medicine. In their profession, there were things more unattractive than this fortune teller, and he could not understand how she worked with patients at all. The fortune teller looked at Jacob with frightened eyes and obediently breathed as he instructed her, and finally her breathing was evened out a little. The woman slowly came to her senses, and the crowd began to move away. "Jacob, are you coming? Leave her alone already. People like her do not die so easily," impatiently muttered Amanda, grinning contemptuously. She decided to take advantage of the situation by all means and dispel Jacob's melancholy and finally settle her personal life. "Amanda," Jacob sharply turned to her, "I am going to put a question to the chief doctor about your professional inadequacy." "What? All because of that tramp? Are you out of your mind?" Amanda did not expect such a twist and turned around in anger and walked away. And the fortune teller, touching Jacob's hand, asked in a low voice to help her get up. Jacob sat her down on the nearest bench, but the woman would not let him go and asked him to sit down beside her. When he sat down, she took his hand. Jacob smiled. He never believed in fortune-telling. "Do not you believe in it, but I haven't said anything yet," uttered the woman, noticing his skeptical smile. Jacob decided not to offend the elderly woman and tried to give his face a serious expression. "Why did you leave your wife alone? You go everywhere alone. You don't take her with you. While She wanted to go with you so much. She feels guilty. She feels bad." Jacob suddenly stopped smiling. "I wanted to be alone," he said with difficulty. "You think only about yourself, but she suffers too. She suffers so much that she almost had done something terrible to herself." Jacob felt as if an icy wave washed over him. He remembered coming home one day and finding Ruby in the bathroom. The woman was vomiting so badly that he had even wanted to send her to the hospital, but she refused, saying that she was just sick because of eating something not fresh. He was not asking more at the time, but now he suddenly realized the terrible truth and became white with horror. He sharply understood how heartless he had been, and that he had not fully seen the depths of his beloved's heartache. Jacob got up, intending to say goodbye and go home, but the elderly woman suddenly added, "Go home quickly. A surprise is waiting for you there. The one that you and your wife have been waiting for. She doesn't even know it yet, and you already know it." The woman smiled, and Jacob stood there looking at the fortune-teller with his eyes wide open. His mind told him that it was crazy to believe any strange woman's words, but his heart believed him that a miracle was possible, because they had some minimal chance after all. Jacob suddenly almost believed in the unbelievable and ran home. He flew up the stairs, opened the door to the apartment, and called his wife, but Ruby was nowhere to be found. Then he saw the slightly open door to the bathroom, and a chill ran down his spine. He had already imagined the horrible picture and pushed the door open. His wife was sitting, brooding on the edge of the tub, and she was holding something in her hands. Jacob dropped to his knees. "Ruby, forgive me. I was so immersed in my worries that I didn't even think you could feel worse. But now we'll be all right. Don't be silent. What's the matter with you?" Ruby raised her head and, smiling guiltily, handed him what she was holding in her hands. Jacob immediately realized what it was. In all the years they had been trying to have a baby, he had gotten to know very well what a pregnancy test looked like. The man excitedly took the test, closed his eyes, and then looked at it after taking a deep breath. The test clearly showed 2 stripes. He sat silently for a while, still not believing what was happening. Meanwhile, Ruby said, "I was sitting here alone and suddenly realized that I was almost a month late. I took a test and this is the result. Could it be a mistake?" "No, honey," Jacob spoke up, raising his tear-filled eyes to his wife. "A fortune-teller told me today that you and I are going to have a baby. How I love you. I am an idiot. I could have lost you through my own stupidity." The next day, no one recognized Jacob. He was in high spirits, joked, and did 2 difficult operations at such a high level that even the chief doctor could not contain his applause. He came up to Jacob afterwards and told him that he had decided to make him head of the department. Jacob smiled, thanked for the trust, and assured him that he would do everything for the prosperity of the department. In the evening, the whole team came to congratulate Jacob. Amanda was also there. She wished him good luck in his new position and gave him a longing smile. Jacob frowned and turned to everyone present. "Excuse me, maybe this is not a correct time, but I've wanted to tell you all for a long time. If a person Even a poorly dressed one felt bad outdoors near you. Would you help him?" Everyone murmured and nodded in agreement, and Jacob said, "That's what I thought. And I ask you, Amanda, to leave our clinic immediately."